50 tridents in 4 days. I asked myself, where do I start? I guess I'll start wherever the video begins. Also asked myself, where's the half tridents that I dug? 12 and a half per day. I look around and I still don't see those half tridents. But anyway, here we go. 50 tridents dug and potted in 4 days. That was the weekend of the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. As you can see, trident maples all over the place. Trident maples. These are smaller ones. They're even hidden in little pockets like this. As a matter of fact, I had them soaking in this for a couple of days, and I just pulled it out last night. And as you can see, I'm using colanders on some of these. Hopefully I'll stop long enough to get a good gander at these little jewels. Again, 50 trident maples dug and potted in 4 days. These are not dug trees, and I've shown them before and talked about them before, but these were fused trees. I fused on some seedlings to pieces of a tree in the ground at the time, and that's what we have. And those are tridents there. There should be about 5 or 6 of these over here. Most of those are not rooted. They had calluses on them or real small nubs of roots, and I wasn't messing around anymore, so I just whacked off the callus pieces, took a section of the trunk and potted them. So hopefully some of those will root, and I'll go on about my business. Some smaller trees. 50 tridents in 4 days. That's a Chinese elm. That was actually dug over that time frame too. So we'll go around this way, and these are a couple of Chinese elms that was actually dug over that time frame. So I actually dug more than the 50 tridents, but here we have another trident. Actually, this one I cut back and labeled, and I had it in the ground for sale. No one took it, so I kept it and just continued to let it grow in the ground. So this time I've dug it, and now we'll let it grow in the pot, sell it, keep it, do whatever it takes. Another Chinese elm, and it's already beginning to back bud. These are some small wired trident maples. Put some movement into them. So got that going on also. And we'll go back here. I think this is probably one of my newest, greatest, most likeliest trees that I recently started working on. I like the way that this is situated. Now, the special thing about this is this part right here is your normal large leaf trident maple. This over here is your small leaf trident maple. I fused this trident maple as a seedling into this when it was on the parent tree a number of years ago. Once it fused in, I set this in the ground and just let it grow for a few years. And you can see how this bark flakes. That's typical of the small leaf trident, and how this bark is kind of greenish tan colored, which is your normal trident maple. So anyway, this can be grown, either cut that out completely or grown as a twin trunk. And that I've had in a pot since last season, and I've got to do some work on that. I had a little damage right there, so I'll clean that up and work on it. This also is a tree from previous season that I've dug and have been working on. You can see some wire on it. I've got this pulled down. Eventually I'll cut this back in this area somewhere instead of leaving this armature way out here. And 4 Chinese elms, which I also dug over the 4-day time period. And this little shohin baby here I've been working on for a while also. And hopefully in the next little while I'll pull this out of the pot, retrim the roots. See, I've got some callus and knots going on here, so I'll need to pull that out, trim the roots, and work on that. And again, Chinese elms that I've dug up, and they're large and whatnot. So the idea here is I'll air layer off what I need on the top part, or even fuse in other trees, elm seedlings, so that I can remove this down to the base of the trunk for whatever I'll do next. So, and the idea here is partly I need to clean up this area and rework this, get trees out of the ground, reclaim the ground, because I need to revitalize the soil, add nutrients, fertilizers and such. And so I can accomplish that best by taking up some of these trees that I'll be digging up anyway, which will also give me a better root system as these grow back in their pots. Okay, so now this soil is mixed, reclaimed bonsai soil with additives to give the grit that I need in it to create good bonsai soil roots. More trees, trident maples, 50 trident maples dug in 4 days. And these along here, these are previous season digs, and that's a pretty good size tree right there to be cut down. It could be a nice little shohin. That's about 4 inches across the base that way. Well, if you count the entire length of that, that's about 6 inches. So depending on what position you'd like to have it in. Again, nice little shohin that I've been working on. Good branch development. So now it's some ramification that needs to be done. 50 tridents in 4 days. More trees here. Nice base on this. Look at that. That's about 3 inches. Yeah. Yep. Right at 3 inches across the bottom of that. So part of the idea here is, again, most of these will be cut down even further, but because I'm reclaiming some areas of my growing beds, I don't want to lose all of the trunk material. So some of these will be air layered or fused with seedlings, and that will give me some material to work with. The fused material will take a little time for the roots to develop, and I might find that I'll need to go back in and fuse more roots to give a good base. But even once I cut the trunk off and set it in the soil, eventually the bottom of that will put out roots. So between the fused seedling and the eventual roots, there'll be enough root mass to make a good bonsai display. This is a little group that's been here working, but most of these are part of that 50 tree count. And you can see over there, more trees, lots of trees. Little woodpecker up here, pecking away. A little fella right there. 50 trees. 50 trident maples in 4 days. And you can see that's about 4.5 feet right there. But again, it could be Chuhin size or a Shohin size. These actually will be cut down, but for just raw material, I can fuse a seedling onto this, and these can be used as group plantings. Okay, more trees, and this is the other side. You can see this tree, that's almost 5 feet tall right there, that tree. But again, it has good movement right here, and I didn't want to lose that, and I needed to go ahead and get this out of the ground. So here we have it. I'll fuse something in here, and I may air layer down here, and then I'll cut that back to an appropriate size and do whatever I'm going to do. And these are cuttings, 3/4 to an inch on the largest sides, and then smaller pieces of trident maples. And again, these little jewels right here. And of course, there's always something in the works. So that was a little root over rock that I've been working on. It was planted in the ground a while back, and it just sat there and languished, and I finally dug it up to reset it on the rock and to give it more attention. And then it really started taking off and looking a whole lot better. And of course, these are older trees that I've been working on, and we're starting to get nice branching, and that's pretty good. I'm trying to make an extended root out of this former cutting. It's a rooted cutting that was damaged, and so I scraped that out, and it's starting to callus over. And again, from now until the next few seasons, when I get around to it, I'll pull that out, reassess the roots, and then do whatever. I really like the way this came out as far as clasping on the rock. That was a seedling, which I've cut down. and cut back. And that one's nice too. Most of these I reset in 2022. That is going to be an exposed root Trident maple, and this I reset where I pulled the root base out of the pot and looked at it. I didn't do much with that, but from here to there, I selected out some roots. I cleaned things up, inspected it to make sure that I've got some good strong roots developing, and then eventually I'll come back and clean these out. But this should be the last season I leave this wrapped like this, and we'll begin to expose it, the roots. This I reset in 2022 late. I raised it in the pot a little bit, inspected the roots around here, and then re-wrapped all of that. Another root over rock that's clasping pretty well. This was just a root piece that I'd flat cut from another tree, set it in the pot, and it shot out some new growth. And so that was a root piece that actually took. And I have to clean this up again from the weeds, but root over rock, and that's really sitting on there nicely. And that's gonna, so hopefully it's going to be a nice long exposed root Trident maple. And this was a cutting, and I don't know what it's going to be eventually, cascade, or I'll use these in this position, but I've got plenty going on, so there's no big rush. And as long as I get good growth in this area right here, I'm fine. This can come off, and then I can use that as a new leader. Some nice little, this is actually a root over rock. The rock is underneath the soil still. I haven't raised that up yet. Nice little chewing size Trident. And these are Trident or elms, Chinese elms. I just looked at it a little while ago, and I'm beginning to get some girding in this area. So pretty soon I'll have to remove that. I'm going to try to get back to this pretty soon and cut this root. Cut that root right through there, and then use this as a new tree. And this base will be shorter. And if I get froggy, I'll cut this back to here, thereabouts, and just create an entire new tree out of this section right in here. And that will be another tree. Don't you just love this? I do. It's really overcast today. It may even rain, so not a bunch of bright sunshine, but that's okay. Kind of a bummer. This settled in the pot after I set everything up. The rock came down out of the root mass, but I can still fix that. Nice little exposed root, semi-cascade, cascade, depending on what a person wants to do. But again, 50 Trident maples dug. And as I was saying about the grafting in Trident maple seedlings, this is actually a seedling that was grafted in to this tree. and you can see the scar there. That's part of where it fused together. This is also the same. I've already eliminated the seedling from this. This is a whole new branch from a different tree. And that's a root that developed from the wound on this. And that was just a section of a tree that I fused a seedling onto and then cut everything off, and all of that started new. And this was also a branch that I liked the movement in it, so I fused in just one seedling is all it took, and that's about 4 inches. That's about 3 inches there, and we got about 24 to 30 inches on the height. One seedling is all it took to keep that alive. Okay, so doesn't take much. And as I said, 50 Trident maples dug and potted in 4 days. And this is, yeah, I think this is the last one I dug. Well, actually I dug this after the 4 days, but this, my pot is the base of a floor fan, the little grill, okay? And I took the tops off of pots when I cut the pots down, and so you can see I tied it, and I've got plastic in the bottom to secure the soil and to hold the moisture, and I made a pot like that. So I'll just let that grow, get some good root regrowth, and then I'll be fine. And here's another tree right here. I like that as a twin trunk. This branch is not necessarily usable because it comes across the trunk of the twin trunk there, but it's a nice twin trunk tree. And of course it could be cut down further and the top regrown. Talking about fusing trees together, this is a small leaf trident, the top part, and the bottom part is your regular trident maple. And this was the end of the small leaf trident maple, and this over here is where the regular leaf maple, the seedling, went into it. So that's how they fuse together. And I've got several of the small leaf tridents that are either still in the ground, just like this right over here. That was a complete air layer that I took off of the original parent plant and then planted it here. My air layers didn't fully take, even though I've got life, greenery growing in there, whatever that is. So depending on how anxious I get, I'll cut those off and just end up losing all of that material up there. Of course, I'll cut these back to a shorter area, and as I cut the base of these calluses off, that'll open up flesh so that perhaps they'll root. I've had calloused air layers that I cut off like that before that rooted, and even one turned out to be a nice little cascade in the end. But again, it's my growing area. Right now there's about 80 trees left in here out of several hundred that I've used to have planted in here and have dug. And so you can see the plastic on some of these. Some of these actually do have roots on them right now. I haven't gotten around to getting all of these taken care of. Some I might just leave in the ground, especially once I thin this out again, refertilize, remineralize the soil, and then clean up this area. A lot of this was my garden area. There's what you call that, garlic and onions in there, rosemary. Here's some garlic right here. So there's my bay leaf tree. And even this was another tree that I'd cut down before, labeled it, put it online to sell it. No one took advantage of it, but that's okay. With probably what I see, the 2 labels back there, 2 labels, 4 labels. So out of all of the trees that I did have labeled and cut down on that particular season, you know, 4 left is not a problem. Plus these are grown a lot more anyway. So, and right here is my very, very original garden for my, well, I'll say my Trident maple grove. And in here I counted about 32 trees left. And this was a 100-tree plot. And I've actually got elms in here also. So the Chinese elms. So anyway, I've got a few trees that I want to dig out of here right now. You can see that's where I've been digging. And there we have it. So between the elms and Trident maples, well, as a matter of fact, you can see here the tops out of some trees that I dug, Trident maples. And this right here is about 16, 17 feet. So if somebody ever asks, why does the trees cost so much? They're so little. Well, they used to have a top. And a tree that size is in the $200, $250 range. In a local nursery, which means if the nursery is right there near you, then fine. I mean, it could be a local nursery, but if they have to ship it across country, then that's not local. You know, that's a different story. But let's see something else. Hold on. Okay, here we are. Here's another Trident maple. I took some of the cuttings, larger cuttings from the Chinese elm, and stuck it in pots. So we'll see if we can get something done with that. But again, another Trident maple. And you can see that Trident maple right there. So I dug it last year and planted it there to reposition it. It was situated over here. But these are the Trident, well, the Trident maple, another, and then these are Chinese elm there, and then this is the Japanese maple. That's the trunk, the base, the root, the original foundation of the tree, and I put an air layer on it where that's cut, and that's in the pot now. So this whole top right here, which is probably, I'll call that 10 or 11 feet. Okay. So this whole thing, okay, so I've got it secured to that metal post, and hopefully it will survive. It had a little bit of roots on it, and so we'll go with that. I've done larger trees in air layer 16, 17 feet out of the top of a tree that I actually had to get up on a 6-foot ladder to set the air layer. So here we are 6 feet above that. It was a large tree. But anyway, I've got this other Japanese maple that has air layers on it. And again, depending on how anxious I get, because I need to get all that cleaned up. More Trident maple trees that were cut down from the ones that we just saw. So I dug that right here from that large tree. And this is the same tree that a few years back that I put the video on of a large tree, that air layer that I cut out and planted it. And within a month later, hurricane came in the area. The winds, now we didn't get a direct hit from the hurricane or anything, but the winds twisted the tree and spun the root ball off. You know, I dug this tree up, took a look at what happened to cause that. And even though I did have it situated in the ground and staked somewhat, it wasn't staked, you know, for, you know, tropical storm type winds or anything like that. So I lost that tree, which is okay. It's what it is. So now this tree is the base that's regrown, and this is where I kind of cut to trim this to give it some taper in the top branches. I ended up having this double branch to form off of the original. Okay, so now I've got to come back in here, select out one of these to be the leader, and then do something with the rest of this. Well, this tree is pretty much, yeah, it's in the ground. Okay, so now what I have to do, or what I will do, is come in here with my saw, cut the roots back. Okay, so over this year, I'll probably go ahead and take at least 2 seasons. Cut the roots back in sections. Okay, I'll cut some on this side, I'll cut some on the other side, cut some on that side, cut some on this side, about every 6 months or so. And when I cut the roots, what I'll do is everything away from the tree, I'll excavate that, fill it in with good bonsai soil, you know, lots of aggregate, so that I'll get regrowth, and I'll get finer roots to fill a bonsai pot. So rather than me digging this tree right away with these heavy roots, I'll do that, and basically what I'm doing is undercutting the tree in sections over a period of time. Also, I've removed a number of Trident maples right here that grew to nice sizes, and these were seedlings that I put in like 2 years ago. And there are other trees in here, Trident maples along there, even in here. These are wild cherry laurels and oak, and I just wanted to make sure I didn't cut up any of my Trident maples. But here's another Trident right here on the edge of that, and then there's some Trident maples over there. So I went along this pathway and put some younger seedlings in even after I had these in, and lay my ground fabric and whatnot. There's some under here, but the leaves from and the debris from the palm tree, the crepe myrtles, the camellias, and even the oak leaves dropping have covered up all that stuff. But still, certain kinds of weeds will still dominate and grow through all of that. So I need to go ahead and put ground cover down to keep my workload down, and so that the trees will not be, my seedlings especially, crowded out so much. And still, I want to go ahead and cut this and separate it. I thought about it and thought about it. Cut that right side of that tree out with that part, and that's Trident maple. And then probably use both of them on rocks. Naruto Trident maple, and that's the other side of that Trident maple, which is a very nice tree, which again I grew over here in my, that's what I root all of my stuff in, that tan sand right there. That's my rooting medium, and it's if you will, if I'm mixing up soil, that's the basis of my soil. These are small leaf Trident maples. Okay, this thing right here is huge humongous. Okay, nice trunk, nice trunk. So I need to get some separations. The air layers didn't take as fast as I wanted to and as cleanly as I wanted to when I set these on last season. So it's like, well, this tree I won't monkey with. I'll have to undercut it before I dig it up. And this one I'm going to go ahead and dig it out to give this space and room for me to work. So I'll cut that air layer back to a smaller level, and then the rest of this I'll lose. I hate losing my small leaf Trident maple because they are so difficult to propagate. And but again, that's that. More Trident maples. And again, in here, this is the place where I used to have a pine tree, and between the pine tree litter, the tree, and the mycorrhizomes that I would add, the trees just grew like gangbusters in here. The pine trees have been gone several years now. You can see a little bit of stump from that one, and that's the last tree that was cut. But I can always use the mycorrhizome purchased from the store. And this Trident maple also, I was really wanting to dig it out, but again, I'm going to undercut the roots and just take my time and work with it that way. Plus, that way I can go ahead and claim some of this good material up top. These are good pieces or sections that I can use in group plantings. And hey, I won't have to lose that. See, this, if I had taken my time, if I had more help at the time, I could have fused on well, I could actually just planted this up to there and then fuse on a seedling at the top. But again, so many hours in a day, so many hands to a body. So you can see how large that tree is. That's really a nice Trident maple. And I've cut some back. And again, I've dug out a number of trees out of this section. And even these can be nice little shohins or mameys, depending on how deep you want to cut it. These are two air layers, former air layers that have been in the ground maybe 2 seasons now. I forget. But anyway, I came in here a little while ago and trimmed back and cut back some of these, and then I'll be fusing on some seedlings for different sections, and then hopefully next season I can dig these up and out. But I will attempt to fuse on some branches or seedlings onto some of these larger branches, and then take larger sections out, some nice sections with movement in it and such, or something to give me a cascade depending on the position. So like that section right there. This is a stump that I took the large branch off, had to cut this with a chainsaw, And there are the trees over there in the blue container. And well, we'll walk over there in a second. And so some of these I need to thin out anyway, but you know, plans of mice and men, I had already planned on taking some of these out when they were younger and fresher branches. And that was after I cut the tree back and just, you know, got rid of some of the other stuff. I don't know if you can really see that, but you can see the callus on there where the air layer did not take. And right there, the air layer did not take. But I managed to salvage something out of the deal from those branches. And so that's the part of the tree that I cut off of that Trident maple. And you can see the end piece right here. You can see it's callousing over. So as long as I keep soil on that, that will work. And this piece also. Now these two pieces, these two trees here that I'm showing you was one branch, and it had rooted in the perfect spot where I could separate them, and I made two trees out of it. So now I'll decide to cut this back in this area and then go up this way for a bit and just lose all of this, because I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time air layering or fusing stuff onto these. And this I'm trying to make into a raft design, and whether or not I leave it in this configuration or cut the larger piece out is to be determined. And if I get roots on this end, I may even take this out for a separate piece if I get roots down there. When I put this in, I scored the bottom of this entire deal, so we'll see how that turns out. And my idea is to come in here, clean this out, ground cover it, same in here. This side will be my root over rock section, and anything that I want to do in specific shohin or even mame. Okay, so these will definitely get my full attention, and this will be like another group planning area. Okay, so 50 Trident maples dug and potted in 4 days, and there's more than 50 Trident maples that we looked at. There are more than 50 trees that I spoke of, but again, there's always more to come. These are some trees that I'm going to use for group planting, medium-sized group planting. So, and this is shohin that I'm working on. So I cut it back, and you can see the first cut was right here, and then this grew up and I cut here. So now I'm waiting on this to actually back bud, and then I'll cut this back. I may cut it back to this branch, or if I get some buds just a little bit above it, then I'll use that. But this is taller than I really wanted it. But again, I needed to get this up in the pot and start getting my roots developed. So only if you can have smell-o-vision. And again, these were the fused pieces and more wired trees here. This is forsythia, exposed roots. Okay, so that is it, and we'll see you around.